Brevard County Commissioner Trudy Infantini brings a different perspective to the board. A college accounting teacher and determined fiscal watchdog, she's argued against tax rate increases and tax incentives for some companies seeking to move or expand on the Space Coast. Ask Infantini what she's doing for District 3, which includes Melbourne Beach and parts of Melbourne and Palm Bay, and she'll quickly tell you she's focused on monitoring and serving the whole county. Her outlook has led to some headline-making conflicts with other commissioners. But Infantini seems to be enjoying herself, as you'll see in today's interview. Check it out. Trudy, you always like to tell me that you focus mainly on countywide issues as opposed to just what's going on in District 3. Give me a sense of what are some of the big ones that cross the county that are on your radar these days, that you spend your time doing research on?
Cocoa Expo is one of the big ones that we've spent some time researching and actually getting to tour the facility. Cocoa Expo is now going to have a field, or a number of fields for young people to play baseball on, practice baseball. They've got pitching stations, videos. It's too enormous to elaborate, but it's an enormous complex, and a gentleman came in, Jeff Understall, thank you.
Yeah.
Jeff Understall.
Okay.
And he has put so much time and effort into that project. I can't believe it. It was done without any county money, without tax abatements, without incentives. He did it all on his own and put it together. He's got his contractor's license. I saw 2 of his sons out there working with him, and an enormous crew out there working, putting all of the finishing touches on the stadium out there. It's going to be fantastic.
So it's close.
It's close. It's getting close. He had hoped to be done by last December, a year ago.
There were some issues that came up at one time. It was a snag with them regarding parking or water or something like that. Whatever happened with those issues?
He worked through them, and that's one of the things where I try to encourage the county to be more business friendly. Instead of saying, what can we do to slow down your process? What can we do to facilitate your progress? And I think we still have a ways to go. I just met with a few people from county staff today, and they're working on site plan changes. And I think these changes would have actually helped Jeff moving forward, because we called his project a completely new project. So he had to give us a whole new site plan, even though he was renovating ball fields.
Good.
We made it,
and one of the best known older properties in that part of the county, correct?
right. Now, there's 2 sides. I mean, he did change the layout and configuration of some things,
okay.
but for the most part, it's the same thing that we had there before. All it is bigger, better, improved, and we wanted to get it moving. And it looks like it's finally going to happen, but that's an enormous project that's going to be, I think, second to the port. It's going to be the biggest regional significance to the whole county. Honest to goodness. Second to the port, I think that's going to be the biggest thing that we have to offer, aside from the water.
Well, you just got done saying that the Cocoa Expo didn't need any incentives or didn't
Right.
need any county money. That seems to be an issue that you question more than other people on the county commission. Can you give me a sense generally, what kind of incentives do you favor versus not?
If we're going to give incentives, I would prefer to do tax abatements. And a tax abatement is where we allow you to pay us less property taxes than we would otherwise collect. One thing I'm completely opposed to, and hopefully I've been consistent in my voting, is giving you cash up front. Okay. And everybody keeps going back to Embraer. Embraer has done a wonderful job. However, giving anybody cash up front, I'm opposed to. There's a certain disincentive when you have your money up front. Look at Blueware, what happened. That's a very awful example, but it's an example just the same. I never believe in giving money up front.
The one thing that that I've been opposed to, and very publicly so, but I know some people disagree with me on this, and I wanted to get your take, was the secrecy that comes along with some of these proposals. Embraer was Project Jaguar. You voted against tax abatements for something that was called Project Circle earlier this year. How were these projects presented to you from the EDC or whoever else is involved with them? How can you make a decision on what to vote for if you don't know who the companies are?
That's why I vote against them. If I don't know about the company, I'm going to vote against it. And I've explained that to the EDC personnel or staffing there. For instance, when Bass Pro came in, I asked them what was the name of the company. They wouldn't divulge it. Now, later on in the day or in the week, I was able to confirm who the company was, do our own research, and find out, yes, in fact, Bass Pro is one of the biggest names in sporting goods, and it would be an excellent addition, so I ultimately voted for it. But the EDC never gave me the name of the company.
But you asked them for it.
But I asked them for it, and they said, oh no, confidentiality, they couldn't give it to me. Yet I found 3 other people that did. One person probably would have been subject to confidentiality. The other 2 that were aware of the company name and openly divulged it to me because of who I was, they would not have been subject to the confidentiality agreement. So I don't know how they pick and choose who gets to know about companies, but if I don't know about it and I can't do my homework, I'm not going to vote for it. What about Sun Energy? That's an oil and gas company that promised us, oh, was it 100 or 300 jobs?
But that was done out in the open, sort of proving the other side of it, right?
Right.
Because they were out in the open, you had the ability to decide very openly whether you were going to give them some money, correct?
Right, and so we were able to do a great amount of research, but had it just been presented at the face value, my husband, when he first heard about the company and saw the write-up in the paper, he said, oh, you really need to be in favor of this. And he was telling me a little bit about the company. Later on, he called me and he said, I looked at their financial statements. Wait till you see them. You're not going to believe it. Well, of course, then he and I both started looking into the financial records of them, and there's nothing there. Why would you offer all of these tax abatements to a company that has yet to turn a profit, has done nothing but, it would appear to be a shell company, that you bought the name of a company that was out of another state, I forget what state it was, and then relocated the state here, the company here, and said that you're going to go in business pulling up oil and gas and some other things. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
It was just flywheel technology is what they also said they were doing. Yet on their website, there was not a single indication of flywheel technology that they were looking into.
Well, look, if they make the money, if they succeed, great, right? If they don't, but I think it points to another question, which is, why do we need to incentivize small entrepreneurs? I mean, every entrepreneur I know who starts a company is doing it because they want it to succeed, they're driven to make it succeed, and most of the time they want to sell it to somebody. Whereas with the bigger companies, the Embraers, the Northrop Grummans, they could really move anywhere they want. You want to give them an incentive to do it here as opposed to, say, Texas or North Carolina. I mean, does the county commission have these kinds of conversations about what do we want to incentivize and why do we need to incentivize some versus the other?
We have had some discussions, but go ahead and go back to Northrop Grumman. From my understanding and all the people I've spoken with, they were already going to move here. The icing on the cake was giving them a tax abatement. They didn't need it. They'd already selected us. They had already selected our location. Why do you select Brevard County? Look at what we have to offer. We don't have to buy somebody coming in. If you're going to choose between moving to Brevard County, Florida, or somewhere in Illinois, we have the weather, we have the beaches, we have the technology, we have the brain power here. How many people do we have here that you can already employ to do this, the type of work that you need? So I don't even think, personally, that we need to offer tax abatements. However, in the interest of teamwork and trying to bring jobs here, from time to time I do vote for them. But for the most part, I don't think they're needed. I don't think Harris needed the tax abatement. They were going to already expand here. We didn't need to give them the incentive. That's my perspective.
Well, I know you're no fan of community redevelopment agencies. I think we may have talked about that before on this program. One of the biggest projects and one of the biggest CRAs is the Miracle City Mall effort. Why don't you explain that and give us your take on that?
Okay, I heard you on Bill Mick this morning, and you cited Jerry Brown turning a profit, or
Governor Jerry Brown.
Governor Jerry Brown, and has a surplus.
Okay.
Well, we did a little homework before the show, and we found that, in fact, he effectively rid the state of their CRAs. They had over 400 CRAs, and I have a news article in my little stack below, and that's just it. The CRAs, the community redevelopment agencies, they were bankrupting the state. He had to shut them down to be able to fund the essential needs of government. He did that, and now, like you said, they have a surplus because they were draining so much money for all their special projects. Oh, let's have the Matt Reed plant a new garden project. Well, if you did that...
I like that idea, and I think I'd like some government help to do it.
Okay, and that's
Matching
great.
money in some kind.
I would love to have that too, but we don't have enough to match it to give everybody their own little project. So if the economic zone, the Miracle City Mall, why in the world would government put in a mall? If a mall is good for a location, private business would do it. If there's money to be made, otherwise you're just going to be subsidizing the mall. Look at the Melbourne Square Mall. The reason why it's successful is because you have the demographics around to support it. You don't build a mall and say, okay, now there's a mall, people should come. Look at the property they just now purchased in Melbourne on US 1, where the old Shooters used to be, and there was a marina, I think Chris Craft boats used to be there.
Coral Bay or something was a big restaurant that was
Right.
maybe about 10 years ago, I believe, was there.
Okay, before Coral Bay was Dixie Crossroads. Dixie Crossroads is an enormously successful restaurant in Titusville. Now, if they couldn't make it there at that same location, they changed from Dixie Crossroads, then they sold it to Coral Bay, and then Coral Bay went out. If business cannot succeed in a location, why is government going to go in and buy it and then say, here, business, locate here? You're still not going to succeed.
But just as a point of discussion, could there be properties that have some kind of handicap to them? I mean, if they could just get a little help with, say, an underground gas tank or new infrastructure run to a mall site or tearing down an old blighted building, if that was the difference maker for a private company wanting to be there, it's not okay for tax dollars to go towards helping that a little bit if it helps facilitate growth?
There may be times, but to have agencies pocketed around the whole county that say, okay, well, I'm going to be in charge of this area. If it's good, why aren't the elected officials, the ones that were elected to manage the funds, why are they not overseeing that? Why did we have to create a special board in North Brevard County to oversee the millions, and now it's no longer disputed, it's no longer being made up by Commissioner Infantini. It's going to be anywhere from $90 to $150 million over the next 30 years for the North Brevard Economic Zone. That is more money than has been collected by all 17 CRAs for the past 25, 30 years, collectively. And you're putting it all in one area. There is no equity in that. There's absolutely none. And if it's good for Brevard, North Brevard, why wouldn't you just spread that throughout the whole county?
Well,
is it because of unemployment?
What would you rather? I think that was the reason, was because at the time that they, Commissioner Fisher and some others thought that this would be a good idea, we were right in the throes of the Space Shuttle layoffs. It was a particularly hard-hit area, and that was the response to it. Is there a better response to something like that? Is it just wait and let the private market decide, you know, how to cope with this big government layoff problem up there, or what do you think?
Well, why hasn't it been successful so far? It's the leadership in that area, that part of Brevard County. If you don't change the leadership and the rules that they have in place, they have over-regulated Titusville and parts north. They've got to tighten up, they've got to loosen up their rules on their regulations, otherwise they're going to continue chasing out businesses. That's why they should have been so incredibly successful with all the money that is poured into that area for the past 30 years, ever since we started the space program. That should be the most flourishing part of Brevard County, and instead it's the fastest dying. It shouldn't be that way. Why didn't it take off? Well, because people got very restrictive. They decided they got a little bit elitist, and they said, we want only these types of companies to come in. That's kind of like the EDC. The EDC somewhat says, oh, we only want these big name companies to come in. When I presented to the EDC about a company that was going to start a nursing facility, an assisted living facility, oh no, that's not the type of jobs that we're looking for. They're jobs.
Let's talk about the EDC for a moment. on the county commission, you've called for audits of them, and you've, in some ways, opposed what they do. I know they get some kind of a financial audit. What is it that you'd like to see happen with the EDC?
I'd like to see a performance audit. I'd like to see it for the EDC and the TDC, because whether you're talking economic development or tourism development, what are you doing with my money and what's my return? They claim to have gotten the blueware jobs. Well, wait, no, they didn't actually. Now they're saying they didn't get those jobs. Actually, that company was offered to them. That's just one company. They're taking credit for the Harris jobs. They're taking credit for the Northrop Grumman jobs. Those jobs were already coming. We offered them extra money. Those companies did not come as a result of the efforts of the EDC. So specifically, what did you do, EDC, to generate, to get this company to locate here? I want to see the documentation. I want to see the documentation where they were already going to leave. And this was the only thing, this was the single reason why they stayed, was because of your efforts. The TDC, our Tourism Development Council, they take trips all the time. They pay for advertising. What is that returning to the hotels in heads and beds? Okay, how many hotel stays did you get when you went over to China trying to get tourists to come here? How many tourists did you get here? They need to quantify it, otherwise how can I tell what my return on my investment is? Investors don't invest that way, but this is government money. It's somebody else's money, so nobody's watching. And I can't get anybody else on the commission to want accountability the way I want it. Oh no, they're doing a great job. Prove it. All I'm asking is prove it.
Is it their mission to be the closer, or is it their mission to be the facilitator, to, you know, if there are these pools of money and incentives out there, to kind of be the enzyme that goes out and talks to people, and if the county commission wants to extend incentives, or if the governor does, or a city does, to sort of be the communication point and have that come along? Or do they have to show that but for the EDC, we wouldn't have Northrop Grumman, or we wouldn't have Embraer, in your mind?
Yeah, I think it would be good if they could show me, because they're taking credit for creating 1,000 jobs for Northrop Grumman, which they haven't started yet, 600 jobs for Harris Corporation. What I'm saying is I need to see the paperwork, the paper trail that shows that were it not for you, we would not have had this, because that's what they're using to justify the $1.4 million. The next thing I have an issue with when it comes to the EDC is they will not turn over any records to the clerk of courts regarding his investigation and his research on blueware. He's the new clerk of courts, and they're claiming confidentiality on those documents. So I have a hard time when we're using taxpayer dollars to finance something and they won't turn over records saying they're exempt. They don't have to give us anything. Well then, why are we giving you so much money to do a job for us if we can't see what it is you're doing?
Do you think they're up to no good?
I think it's too early to render an opinion without the facts, but they won't show me any facts. The hiding does not look good.
I agree that they need to release records. I think I've called for that publicly.
You have,
and I think
and I appreciate
that on
that.
the public records issue, I think I actually supported Scott Ellis on that. They make the argument that there's some case law out there that the EDC ought to be an entirely exempt body. Now, if that were the case, that's kind of troubling a little bit, in that they might not have to release other kinds of records to the county commission. Correspondence, financial records, what would you make of that?
Well, then they probably shouldn't be part of our medical insurance plan. If they've been part of our health insurance plan, part of Brevard County, then you are part of Brevard County operations. Or you shouldn't be part of our health plan, and I suggest you get your own health plan. But they have been part of our health plan, I believe, for the past 20-some years.
Because they used to be a county department, correct?
Right, they used to be a county department. They stopped being a county department and they became their own agency. Once they did that, but then they stayed on part of our health insurance plan, I don't think that they qualify. I think that they are, and then if they are going to be exempt, we have a clause in our contract with them that says we have the right to audit them. If you're not going to allow us to audit you, not a financial audit, a performance audit to see where you're using our $1.4 million, we need to shut off those funds. I did bring that up at the last commission meeting, though, on Tuesday, and the commissioner said, oh no, that would be wasting taxpayer money to have an audit. They're doing a fine job. If you're doing such a fine job, show me. Show me the correspondence that will support the claims that you're making. That's all I'm asking for.
If they were proud of the work they did, maybe they ought to just produce one.
That's right.
Let's talk about the Washington Nationals, because we county taxpayers own Space Coast Stadium. They're the tenants, but they're talking about potentially leaving. I know that the county commission would like to reach out to them, somebody, and negotiate and have a team there. What's your take?
Some of the county commission would like to do that. There is one member of the county commission, myself, that would not like to do that. I'd like them to keep their contract, and if they'd like to extend it, I'd like them to extend it. But to give them an extra $30 million to stay and renovate the stadium, I'm not for that. I brought some paperwork from Plant City. One of the times when I opposed the recruiting of the Washington Nationals, the re-recruiting.
Okay.
The re-recruiting of Washington Nationals, because I don't really believe we should have to beg somebody to stay here. Brevard County, I love it. I purposely located here because of how amazing it is. There's another city, Plant City. They built a stadium back in about 1988 for the Cincinnati Reds, and back then it was about $6 million.
I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, the Cincinnati Reds left in about 1998, something like that. Since then, they've been spending about $300,000, $400,000 every year to keep up their stadium. These baseball teams, they find communities that would love to have a baseball team, convince us that the best way to get them to come here is to build this lavish stadium, or to build a stadium, give them all these facilities, and they're going to bring so much to us. I've yet to see the proof. I have not seen the proof of what they've brought to the table in return for all the money we're spending for the stadium. I think it's fun, and I love having it available. I think it's a great asset, but is it worth $30 million? Mm-mm.
Hasn't there been some kind of an economic impact report, though, that shows that they, between the pros and all of these year-round minor league, developmental league programs, they bring in a lot of people for lodging and spending and restaurants and that kind of thing?
I would like to see it verified.
Okay.
Some of the studies that you've seen, I saw a study a few years back allegedly performed for the EDC. And it was a study, and when I talked to the company that performed the study, they said, well, we didn't perform a study. The EDC gave us data, and we inputted into our report project and published it.
Okay.
And so sometimes with studies, I find that they don't have the intrinsic data behind it to support the claims that are being made. Okay. So some of the claims that were made as far as all of the visitation, all the visitors that came to Brevard County, I didn't really see the supporting backup for it.
I was going to ask you, and it sounds to me like you're not even at this point yet, but if the county refinanced and got matching money to come up with this big package, right,
Mm-hmm.
to share with the Nationals, what would you make of kind of almost privatizing it? In other words, pay the Nationals this money and say, you fix it. Don't, you think you're so good at building a major league quality park? Here's the money, you do it. We privatize that to you. Would you be open to something like that, or?
What are they going to give me in exchange? If I go out and borrow and give them 30...
Great baseball, right?
Okay. Okay, so beside that, what do I get in return?
Okay.
I don't know what I'm going to get in return. I want to be paid back. I don't just want to throw $30 million into an empty pit and say, here, you manage it. No, I'm not for that. I mean, if they were already going to leave, why were they leaving in the first place? Nothing has changed to keep them here. So if you were going to leave in the first place, you probably should leave. And otherwise, it was just something to try and finagle a little extra money. I understand, jockeying, good idea. Nice idea, but we're not going to cough up any more, then stay. I'm not all about paying you extra something to stay. We're either a great location or we don't work for your business plan, your business model. It's one or the other. It's not, the extra $30 million isn't going to help your business model. We're not bringing any other teams here that I know of.
Are we having, I know that we must be getting close to some beach renourishment projects here, and which would be a big deal for your area. What's the latest on
Well, I've seen somebody standing out in the rain directing trucks
Okay.
on my way home. So they must be renourishing some of the beach, because frequently on my way home, even if it's raining, I see this poor gentleman standing out there waiting for a truck to come in. I'm hoping he's not being paid $25 an hour, because I campaigned on that back in 2008. But the guys that were counting the trucks, I actually did a did you know saying, do you know that the guy counting the trucks is being paid $25 an hour to count them?
Really?
Yeah. That was back in 2008. So I hope we're not doing that still, but because I made a joke out of it beforehand. But yes, the beach renourishment is going on. It's in full bore. I don't know. They've got to get it done probably before, when is turtle nesting season? Probably.
I'm not exactly sure. I should know this, but
March? They probably have.
When it gets warm
November.
again, that's when they.
Yeah, November through March, I think.
Okay.
They have to have it done by. So they're working really hard right now.
Trudy Infantini, thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming in and talking with us
It was a pleasure
today.
being here. Thanks so much.
Good luck. So do you agree or disagree with Commissioner Trudy Infantini? Publish your take by sending us an email. Write to letters@floridatoday.com. That's it for today's program. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right here next Wednesday on The Matt Reed Show.